Alright, so let's dive into this whole California wildfire thing. I mean, it's insane, right? Every year it's like clockwork. Boom, another wildfire. And it's not like this started yesterday. No, this has been going on for years. Actually, you could even say it's kind of predictable at this point, which makes it even more frustrating. I mean, like, seriously, how does a state as advanced as California not have this under control? So, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. California's geography? Yeah, it's kind of a problem. It's hot, dry, and full of fuel, like actual fuel for fires. Oh, and the wind. You can't forget about the wind. You know those Santa Ana winds? They're like nature's bellows, just fanning the flames and making everything 10 times worse. Now here's the thing. If you look at the data, and gee, I love data, you'll see that since 2013, there's been a wildfire in California every single year. Every single year. And these aren't small fires, by the way. In 2013, over 2,400 square kilometers burned. That's like massive. And the economic losses? Over $2 billion. Yeah, $2 billion. Fast forward a few years, and by 2017, the damage hit $18 billion. Yup, that's not a typo, $18 billion. And it's not just about the money. It's about the lives affected, the homes destroyed, the ecosystems wiped out. It's devastating. But here's the question, why does this keep happening? Is California cursed or something? Like, is it God's ashtray? Or is there something deeper going on? Okay, so let's talk about the geography and climate. California is a weird place, weather-wise. It's got this Mediterranean climate, which sounds fancy, but basically means it's dry as heck most of the year. Rain? Yeah, that happens mostly in the winter. And even then, a lot of it turns into snow in the mountains. Now, snow is great, don't get me wrong. It's like nature's water storage system. But here's the problem. That snow doesn't help during the summer, which is when everything gets really hot and dry. The trees and plants? They grow like crazy during the rainy season, and then turn into firewood during the dry months. Oh, and let's not forget about the Santa Ana winds. These winds are like super dry and super hot, and they blow down from the mountains at insane speeds. They're basically the perfect fuel for any spark to turn into a raging inferno. So you're probably thinking, hey, if this happens every year, why don't we just, prevent it? And yeah, that's a great question. The thing is, fire prevention in California is like way more complicated than it should be. First off, there's the whole land ownership thing. Did you know that 75% of California's forests are federally owned? Yup, 75%. Another 40% is private property, and only 3% is owned by local governments. So if you want to do something like, say, build fire breaks, you've got to deal with a ton of red tape. Let's say you want to dig a fire break on federal land. Well, you better have a ton of patience because government bureaucracy isn't exactly known for being quick. And if you want to do it on private land, good luck with that. You'd have to get permission from every single landowner, and honestly, a lot of them just won't go for it. Why? Well, private property is sacred in America. You can't just roll onto someone's land and start digging, even if it's for something as important as fire prevention. People will sue you. And like the lawsuits, they'll drag on for years. This brings us to a bigger issue, capitalism. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for capitalism. I mean, SpaceX, Tesla, these companies wouldn't exist without it. But sometimes it can get a little, how do I put this, over the top. In California, a lot of decisions come down to money. Fire prevention? That costs money. And if it's not going to make someone a profit, well, chances are it's not going to happen. Even the state government doesn't want to spend the cash because they're already dealing with massive budget issues. And then there's the insurance industry. Oh man, don't get me started on that. In 2019, the damage from wildfires was so bad that some insurance companies just straight up stopped offering coverage in high-risk areas. Others jacked up their rates so high that people couldn't afford it. So, you've got homeowners who can't get insurance, a government that doesn't want to spend money, and private landowners who won't let you touch their property. Add all that together, and what do you get? A state that's basically a tinderbox. Now, let's talk about the people who are actually fighting these fires, the firefighters. These guys are heroes, no doubt about it. But here's the thing, they're not getting the support they need. You remember 911, right? The Twin Towers fell, and firefighters were the first ones on the scene. They ran into the chaos, risking their lives to save others. But what did they get in return? A lot of them got sick from breathing in toxic dust, and for years, the government didn't even acknowledge their illnesses. It wasn't until like a decade later that Congress finally passed a law to help cover their medical expenses. And even then, the funding was limited. I mean, come on. These guys were heroes. They deserved better. So now a lot of firefighters are like understandably hesitant to put themselves in danger. They've seen how it plays out. You risk your life, you get sick, and then the system just abandons you. So let's dive into the whole water situation. And oh man, this is where things get really weird. You'd think water, of all things, would be readily available for firefighters, right? Well, actually not so much. See, a lot of California's water is privatized. Yep, companies own it. And if you're a firefighter needing water to save a neighborhood, you might actually have to ask for it. And let me tell you, that's just, wow. It's ridiculous. Here's how it plays out. If you're in a wealthy area like Beverly Hills or Malibu, where people have their own private water reservoirs, you might get access. But if you're in a less affluent area, good luck. You're basically left waiting for someone to approve your water usage while the fire keeps spreading. Oh, and the fun doesn't stop there. Even when firefighters do get water, it's not always enough. Why? Because a lot of California's fire hydrants run dry during wildfires. Yeah, dry hydrants. It's like showing up to a sword fight with a butter knife. Now let's talk about insurance. Or the lack of it. When wildfires hit, the damage is so massive that even the big insurance companies can't keep up. Some just pack their bags and leave, saying, "Nope, we're out of here." Others jack up their premiums to the point where people just can't afford to insure their homes anymore. So here's the deal. If your house burns down and you didn't have insurance, yeah, you're on your own. But even if you did have insurance, you're not out of the woods yet. A lot of policies don't cover the full cost of rebuilding, especially when demand for construction spikes after a fire. And oh, by the way, you're still on the hook for property taxes on the pile of ashes that used to be your house. Oh, and your mortgage payments? Yeah, those don't stop either. It's like this perfect storm of financial ruin. You lose your home, you can't rebuild, and you're drowning in debt. And all this because, well, we can't seem to figure out how to prevent wildfires in the first place. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about tools. Firefighters need equipment, right? Like hoses, axes, protective gear, stuff like that. But sometimes, even when they do have the right tools, they're not where they need to be. And let's not forget about the whole public versus private firefighting thing. Yeah, there are private firefighting companies. They charge big bucks to protect wealthy neighborhoods. If you're not rich, well, you're probably stuck relying on the public system, which isn't exactly swimming in resources. Now, here's a curveball you probably didn't see coming: power companies. Believe it or not, they play a huge role in all of this. In 2019, one of California's largest utility companies caused a wildfire because their power lines got knocked over during high winds. The fire caused $30 billion in damages. Yep, billion with a B. So what did the company do? They filed for bankruptcy, of course. And after that, they started doing something even crazier. They began preemptively cutting power during wildfire season. Doesn't matter if you're in a hospital, a school, or just at home trying to stay cool in 100-degree heat. If there's a fire risk, boom, no power for you. It's this bizarre scenario where everyone ends up suffering. The power companies don't want to risk another lawsuit, so they just flip the switch and leave people in the dark, literally. And then there's the whole climate change debate. People love to point fingers saying, "Oh, it's global warming's fault." And yeah, climate change definitely plays a role. Higher temperatures, drier conditions, it's all connected. But here's the thing. Even if we magically stopped global warming tomorrow, California would still have wildfires. Why? Because the infrastructure, the policies, and the systems in place are all fundamentally broken. You can't just blame it on the weather and call it a day. So what's the real problem here? Honestly, it's a mix of apathy, bureaucracy, and a lack of coordination. Everyone's pointing fingers, but no one's actually doing anything. The federal government blames the state government. The state government blames private landowners, and private landowners are like, "Hey, not my problem." Meanwhile, the fires keep burning. And the craziest part, we have the resources to fix this. California has the technology, the manpower, and the money to make a real difference. But instead of focusing on solutions, we're stuck in this endless cycle of blame and inaction. Alright, so here's where we turn the corner. I mean, yeah, it's all super frustrating, but like you can't just throw your hands up and say, "Well, that's just the way it is." We've got to do something. And, it's not like the solutions are rocket science, although I do know a thing or two about rocket science. Anyway, here's what I think California should do to finally get a grip on this whole wildfire situation. 1. Unified Wildfire Management Authority. Okay, first off, we need a single, unified organization to handle wildfire prevention and response. Right now, you've got the federal government, the state government, and private landowners all doing their own thing. It's like trying to play an orchestra with everyone on different sheet music. This new authority would have the power to work across all these boundaries, federal, state, and private. They'd be in charge of things like building fire breaks, thinning out overgrown forests, and maintaining emergency water supplies. And yeah, it's going to take a lot of coordination, but that's exactly why you need one agency to oversee everything. Oh, and to make it work, give them teeth, like actual legal authority to enforce fire prevention measures. If someone's private land is a fire hazard, boom, they step in, clean it up, and send the owner the bill. 2. High-tech firefighting tools. Alright, now let's talk about technology, my favorite topic. There's no reason firefighting should still look like it did in the 1970s. We've got drones, AI, and autonomous robots. Let's use them. Imagine this, a wildfire breaks out. Instead of waiting for someone to spot it, you've got drones patrolling high-risk areas 24/7. They pick up the smoke instantly and relay the exact location to a team of robotic fire trucks. These things roll out, spray fire retardant, and contain the blaze before it gets out of hand. And the best part, it's all automated. No humans in harm's way, no delays. I mean, we're already doing this kind of stuff at SpaceX, using robots to assemble rockets. If we can build reusable spaceships, we can definitely build smarter firefighting systems. 3. Decentralized water reserves. Water shouldn't be a bottleneck during a wildfire. Like, seriously, it's water. It's not optional. So here's the deal. California should build a network of decentralized water reserves. These reserves would be strategically placed in high-risk areas, and they'd be owned and maintained by the state. No more begging private companies for access. And, oh, we should also equip these reserves with portable water recycling systems. That way, firefighters can reuse the same water multiple times during extended operations. Oh, and while we're at it, let's install smart hydrants that monitor water levels and automatically reroute supply to where it's needed most. 4. Overhaul the insurance system. Alright, insurance. This one's tricky, but it's doable. First, make wildfire insurance mandatory in high-risk zones. That way, everyone's covered. But, and this is key, the government needs to step in to subsidize premiums for low-income households. Second, create a state-run insurance pool specifically for wildfires. Private companies are bailing left and right because the risk is too high. So let the state take over. They can spread the risk across a much larger pool of people, which makes it more manageable. And here's the kicker. Use the revenue from this insurance pool to fund wildfire prevention. It's like solving two problems at once. 5. Incentivize firefighter recruitment. We need more firefighters, plain and simple. And not just more bodies. We need highly trained specialists who know how to handle wildfires. To do that, you've got to make the job more attractive. Higher pay, better benefits, guaranteed healthcare, whatever it takes. Oh, and let's throw in some perks, like housing subsidies for firefighters living in high-risk areas. And one more thing, recognize these people as the heroes they are. Public awards, ceremonies, whatever it takes to boost morale and show them they're appreciated. 6. Public awareness and education. Finally, we've got to get people on board. A lot of these fires start because someone was careless, like tossing a cigarette out the window or not maintaining their property. So let's launch a massive public awareness campaign. Teach people how to reduce fire risks on their own land, what to do if a fire breaks out, and maybe stop blaming climate change for everything. Look, at the end of the day, this isn't just about California. It's about the entire planet. Wildfires don't just destroy homes and forests. They pump tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, accelerating climate change. If California can figure this out, it could become a blueprint for other places facing similar challenges. And hey, maybe we can even export the tech and strategies to other countries. Turn a problem into an opportunity, you know? So yeah, that's my take. California's wildfires are a massive problem, but they're not unsolvable. We've got the technology, the resources, and the brainpower to fix this. It's just a matter of, actually doing it. Anyway, that's my rant. Let's stop treating this like an annual disaster movie and start treating it like a solvable problem. Because, honestly, if we can put people on Mars, we can definitely put out a few fires.